going off the deep end, hummingbirds off the deep end, and normally we do this at the CCA workbench. But
You can see my whole body
tell,
now. I'm not just a head floating.
That's right. Look at him. Oh, boy. That's why he has a bobblehead.
That's right.
All right, so Colin, you know, we've talked and dissected kayak a million different ways, and one of the things that I've always wondered is, what do you guys do when the weather's cold and it's adverse? I know that I don't like being all that cold water and wind and everything on me, so what are some of the things that kayakers do to, you know, compensate for that?
Well, when you're fishing offshore, especially when you have to launch from the beach and you have to go through the breakers sometimes, obviously, like you said, you don't want to get wet. So what I would do on a cold day is wear some long sleeve shirts, some long pants, and go to like a dive shop or something, get some dive wetsuit booties that you can wear over your feet. And I'd get some foul weather gear to wear over that. That way, if you do get sprayed by the water, which is probably going to happen, your clothes won't absorb it, it'll just kind of roll off of you and you won't be freezing the rest of the day.
So do guys use wetsuits when it's really bad cold?
Yeah, a lot of guys will use wetsuits up north especially, but if you're down south, you know, when you wake up to a cold morning and it can warm up during the day, I would say go with the foul weather gear, that way you can take it off halfway through the day.
Now, you know, in the contender, we catch a wahoo or a dolphin, we've got a built-in fish box. What do you guys do in a kayak?
Well, there's a couple things you can do. Obviously, like you said, there's no cooler. So what some guys will do is put a couple of ice jugs that they'll freeze overnight in a freezer.
So that part opens up?
Right here. Yeah. So they can open that up and stuff the fish in there. Or if you don't have a hatch in the front, what you can do is bring a soft cooler and fill it with some ice, put a couple of chamois in there, and then switch them out every now and then, lay them over the fish just to keep the outside of the fish cold and out of the sun.
So Dave, I know you got some questions.
Well, you know, obviously you're real right close to the water. What do you do when it's time to put a gaff in a fish? Do you carry a gaff on there? Or?
Yeah, a gaff is a must, especially if you're offshore, because the last thing you need is
wahoo.
Yeah, you don't want that thing flopping around on your lap with a stinger rig in it if it's got teeth. So what I always do is I'll gaff the fish and I'll carry a dive knife with me, either on the deck of my kayak with a float.
A dispatcher.
Yeah, strapped to my leg or something, and then just kind of knock the fish out before you bring it in, and then you can stow it away.
So let me ask you while you're talking about that. So that's obviously a good way to bleed the fish as well. That we can get, like if it's a tuna or even, you know, guys don't think about kingfish and wahoos bleeding them, but certainly if you cut his gills, it's certainly going to help preserve the meat itself. You know, what about the drag? You know, on a big boat, we can really wrench back and tighten down the drag. Tell me what you guys do in that case.
Well, me personally, before a tournament at the beach, I'll make sure all my drags are set slightly, you know, more loose than you would on a boat. That way, if the fish makes a turn to the direct left or right of your kayak, you're not like holding the rod directly to the left and being pulled over. So if the fish makes a run, you can just let him go. And if you want to put some pressure on him, you can thumb the spool, or if it's a spinning reel, just grab the spool and just
cup the spool.
And you're really only going to be able to put as much drag as it takes to drag this kayak through the water anyway. So you set it light and use your hand to.
But really, you don't really have to do that unless, if the fish is right ahead of you, like in the front, and you're just kind of being towed, you can put as much pressure as you want. But the second he takes off to the left or right of you, you don't want that fish pulling you over. Now, some guys, they'll put their legs over the side to catch their balance and lean over to the right a little bit. But I wouldn't recommend doing that because, you know, like you said, if you gaff a fish and you got a shark, you got a blood everywhere. You don't want a shark coming around and snagging you with the fish.
Right. What kind of gear are you using to fish for these wahoos, rod and reel wise?
Well,
in a kayak.
I usually bring no more than 3 rods. I'll have 2 setups, a spinner and a conventional, and a vertical jigging rod.
So the short rod for the vertical jigging?
Yeah, like the Akuma Cedros combo we have right there, the reel and the rod. And then if you're fishing conventional, you have the Makara conventional reel with the Soltero rod right there, the stinger rig if you're fishing for kingfish or wahoo.
Now, short rods or long rods when you're fishing a kayak?
I would recommend shorter, like 6-foot rod. That way, you know, when you get the fish close, you can pull the rod in a little bit and grab the leader, especially if you're fishing one of the sailfish tournaments that they do off of a kayak.
Well, congratulations. Tell me about quickly the tournament you won over in the Bahamas. What was the name of that?
It was the Extreme Kayak Fishing Tournament, Battle in the Bahamas, and
you won the Wahoo division.
How big was it? How big was the wahoo?
20 pounds.
Well, that's all right.
Nice.
That's all right.